Good day and welcome to another interview. And I'm happy to have Ravi feardragon Pareek. Did I say your name right? With me.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, man. Thank you so much.
So yeah, I'm very happy that you took the time, and I was really looking forward the last couple of days to talk to you a bit more about Starcraft and also how you are connected to this lovely game and our scene. Um, but I want to start to ask you about your name because I was curious. So, what's your background? It sounds Indian.
Oh, okay. Thank God you're not talking about my username.
No, no,
Yeah,
no,
I
no. Yeah,
am.
sorry.
I am Indian. Both my parents are from like North India. My mom is from Jaipur, and my dad is from Calcutta. For anyone that does know those two places in India, so.
I actually do
But I
have
was
a
I was
certain.
born over in Boston.
Okay, yeah. So you are, but your parents are still first generation Indians, like proper
Yep.
Indians. Okay,
Yep.
cool, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they came. I think my mom came over when she was like 17. My dad came over when he was like 20 something.
Hmm.
Uh, like they came over together after they got married, and I've
Okay.
I've just I've lived in the United States for my entire life. I'm a natural born citizen.
Cool, but yeah, I was wondering about the name, so that's what I wanted to ask. So that's interesting. So, um, that's your personal background. You said you started in Boston, and but you are now in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, it's actually a great story because I was technically born around Boston, but I was only there for maybe like 6 to 8 months
Hmm.
before my parents and my whole family just moved to California. So it's like East Coast is where Boston is, West Coast is where we moved to, and then I went to school in the Midwest. So like I've lived through the entire states outside of the South. Um, but
Okay.
yeah, I've grown up and really lived the most in California. Like that was where a majority of my childhood was.
Okay. So, and I also learned, guys listening in and watching this. So there are two videos that I liked a lot. Um, so first, obviously, the big one that you did with the interview that you did with Zion, nearly a year ago. Um,
Oh
where
boy, that was a long interview.
Yes, that was quite a long interview, and it was very interesting. So anybody listening, go check that out. It's still, I think, worth your time. And the other one was now when I watched your musings about Valencia, but we will come to that a bit later. So what I picked up is, and what I find really, really interesting, that you are for me a type of a, how can I put that in English? A hybrid. Uh, you you are very passionate about StarCraft. You produce content. You went to Valencia to comment and to commentate the games and all of that. But you also work full time in
Mhm.
software development, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. On point.
So how how is that going for you? Because when I watched the interview with Zion, you mentioned it's obviously tough on your time, and but you also said, "I will not, um, I will not go full time into esports. I want to stay in software development." Are you still on that level, on that point?
Yeah, it's something that I still feel relatively strongly about. I mean, who knows, maybe something in the future can change that for me,
Hmm.
but for now, I don't see a future where I can sort of support my current lifestyle with esports. I love esports to death. Don't get me wrong, but it
Hmm.
is not exactly the most stable career to have,
Hmm.
especially when like being a commentator or being a broadcaster. Like that's a really really scary thing because now it's not like with software development and everything. Cool, you're doing your job, and for the most part, you want to get along with your coworkers and everything. That's obviously going to be important, but there's some degree of stability and also knowing I work at startups in software development.
Hmm.
That's where the most volatility is. You don't know if the company is necessarily going to be around for very long, but
Hmm.
I have no fear, especially as a software developer, that I'm going not going to be able to find a job afterwards. It's about can I find as good of a job? Where can I find like, a better job or something like that? With esports, if I stop getting gigs because I say something wrong or something like bad happens and the community turns against me, or Blizzard turns against me or something, it's just, that's kind of it. Like, well, I don't have a way of getting jobs or money anymore. My career is over. Like, that's a really, really scary thought to me. And also just, I don't think the money is quite there yet for esports to really justify it for me.
Very interesting that you're mentioning that, because when I did the interview with Maynard, he also hinted at the at this issue that, I mean, it's not that strong in StarCraft, I think, I hope at least, as far as I can see, but this thing of personal connections or relationships, and you say the wrong thing to the wrong person and then you get kicked out, and that's it. So yeah, that's a high risk, so I can understand that you prefer to have some sort of stability. And you also said you enjoy doing what you're doing. I mean, your work now. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's obviously a
Exactly.
bonus. Yeah. At this point in time, can you tell me what are you working on professional, on your normal profession?
Oh, yeah. So I really don't talk too much about this, but I work at a small startup called Wake, Wake. We make productivity software for like other software companies.
Okay.
And there's a free version if anyone wants to try it out. If you work at a software development company or something, the basic idea is it helps people like share their designs and increase communication and workflow processes for people.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was just my own curiosity. I find that very interesting because I think what you also picked up in the last interviews. I mean, these interviews, for example, I do in my free time and for my own enjoyment. And it's always interesting to me how people combine their hobby and their life and work. So that's why I'm curious about it. Uh, how does your family see your activities? I mean, your hobby. Sorry,
It
sorry. Yeah. So
no,
to
no.
to give you some context, and the thing is, my wife was in India for a couple of months, a long time ago, and we know people that live there and work there for longer. And I know I have an Indian friend that I have some loose contact, and I always pick up that the Indian culture is quite. I mean, there are many cultures in India. It's quite diverse. It's not easy to say there's the Indian culture. But the one thing that I always find interesting are Indian parents have this tendency of being quite strict in
Critical.
many things. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
critical and strict. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I had Asian parents, so it was an interesting, I guess, start for StarCraft and everything. My parents have never really been a huge fan of me playing games or like being involved in games very much. Like, I got my Nintendo 64 in 1996 from my like cousin brother who bought it for me, and my parents didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. And like my parents still point back to that and say like, "This is where your life was ruined." And I'm like, "Oh God." Um, so like they have in a lot of ways they haven't really exactly been the most supportive. But at the same time, I have to say like more recently, I don't actually. I guess it was probably just when I graduated from school because I started up on esports and StarCraft and all that stuff. I started it up when I was in college still. But around that time, I would say it wasn't immediately. It was like a little bit afterwards. Maybe in like the last year or two, they've been way more supportive and like really more on board. I think it really took a long time of getting set up and doing things and finally having opportunities before they really started recognizing it. I think it was like for my mom, it was when I was done with school because she always like whenever I wouldn't do well in like classes or something, or I wouldn't do so well on a test, like immediately for her it was like video games are the problem. I'm like, actually no, I just didn't attend class because I was like may have been drinking the night before. But sure, video games are the problem. There are some other. I was not the best student. For my dad, I think he understood it a lot better because he's been involved in like startup life and everything for a very long time. Like that's been most of his career. So I think when I started almost posing it more as like, this is a business that I'm starting and this is like a startup in a sense. This is like, I'm gaining all these other skills by doing this. That's when he started getting a little bit more on board. So parents have been hit or miss. It's mostly been miss, but up until recently, I think they've been actually really supportive.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and if you look at the time that you are involved already in the different communities, you started out, you were also involved in the Smash community and other games, and also now, yeah, Starcraft. And I think at this point in time, I can safely say that a lot of people listening in will know who you are, or at least heard your name and have a basic idea that this guy has been around for quite a while now. And recently, can I say a dream came true? A goal was achieved.
Yeah, a
A
little
goal
bit
that
of
you set
both.
out, Valencia. And I think for a lot of people, that was probably one of the times where many people in the community saw you in a different light. At least that's what I would say. Although I knew you beforehand, but I think in general. So there was a
Yeah.
development, there was a growth also in a way, also more exposure of your work. So you did a long video about Valencia, and I found that very interesting. But could you give us maybe a short version of how was Valencia for you?
Valencia was a really interesting experience. I was nervous as all heck coming into it. I was really, really like anxious about a lot of things because it's first premiere gig. And I've worked with like I've casted on with my own events online with a few of those people. Like I've casted with Pig and Maynard. I felt actually a little bit more comfortable with them. I've casted with Roddy before, like once or twice, but it went really smoothly, so I actually felt really good about that. I've casted with In Control Go a long time ago, but it was, I would say, not the greatest cast, just because I was still so nervous at that point. So I think like the biggest thing in my mind about the Valencia experience is that I had a lot of nerves coming into it, and the way I handled it, I think it was like okay, but at the same time, I kind of regret. I've talked with some people, and like I kind of regret being so vocal on Twitter and stuff about this. But like I wasn't super happy with how I did. To me, I think that we've had like these veterans in casting and like basically creating like amazing content for 7 years now, and they've had this time to just grow, and now like if you look back at like 2012, and this is actually something that people would always tell me, like, oh, well, I think compared to like how other people's first cast went back in like 2013, like you did fine. I'm like, okay, yeah, but 2013's bar was here. 2017's bar is here, and like it's about the difference and I guess trying to catch up because people have just gotten so much better at things. Overall, I think I did okay, but I wish I had done better. It was a phenomenal experience, and like everyone was exceptionally helpful. Like I actually get pissed off now, even more so when people say things like "old boys club," because I'm just like, well, no, everyone's only been helpful to me, like in the most extreme possible way. Like there was not a single person at Valencia that was like uninviting. So it was a really awesome experience. I hope I get to do it again. But I think I do want to have some self-improvement before that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that would also be immediately my follow-up question. I mean, obviously you talked also that the food was great and this nice one breakfast that you had with some of the guys. So you are you are hoping to do it again and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, if I get an opportunity, I will absolutely be taking it. It's in reality, like if I had to say that there was a goal in my involvement with StarCraft, like I consider myself a commentator first. I run all these events. I stupidly trying to do a documentary now in North American players. Like I do all this other stuff, but I make images on, well, I used to make images on Reddit for 99% useless facts. All of that stuff to me is just a side thing that I do for fun or because I feel like it's content I want that nobody else is making, so I just go make it myself. But I consider myself a commentator. I want to be a commentator, and I want to be doing the premiere gigs. I also want to be at the level that I feel like I'm doing a good job at the premiere gigs. That's an important part that I'm still trying to hit. But to me, everything else is just a side thing for fun.
So that's yeah. You are answering my next question. I find that very interesting. Yeah, no. It's I'm happy because I was wondering because you also mentioned the other content that you produced. But it's yeah. So you consider yourself first, and that's the one thing that you want to do a commentator. So you talked about improving your work after Valencia. You also have now probably a better idea of where and how to improve for yourself. So what would that be maybe? Where do you feel you would like to improve also?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of people don't rewatch their broadcasts and stuff. I hate it's like one of the worst parts about like my days when I am like, okay, it's time to go rewatch that cast that I just did and just cringe at all the terrible things. I think a lot of people feel that way. Most people don't enjoy watching that. But I went through and I watched all the stuff for Valencia. I think the big realization that I had both doing Valencia and rewatching it is that I like fiction and fantasy and all that stuff. So like I always like to think of things as like people, all the big commentators have like superpowers. Everyone has like these amazing superpowers when it comes to like being on the broadcast. In Control has like this crazy superpower where he's exceptionally witty. He's super on point all the time. He's really funny in the sense that he's like just amazing at banter. Like that's his superpower is he's incredibly witty in his banter. And of course, a superhero, like if you talk about a superhero, Batman's superpower is that he's like he never gives up on all that stuff and like, but he also does like martial arts and he has like all these other kind of like I wouldn't call them sub superpowers, but like he has a bunch of other powers that are like not his main superpower. But it's like they're strengths of his. So of course like In Control is still like Grandmaster and everything, or like Pig is an incredibly positive person, but he's like very analytical. He's basically doing like the Pig Daily and like talking so much about Starcraft. Like everyone has all of these really really strong powers and like that's what they bring to the broadcast. And I think that I feel like that kind of baby sidekick right now, and I'm like, I know what my strengths are, but I haven't really refined them to the point where I feel like they're superpowers. It's kind of like the kid that's like 6 years old on the show, and I'm like spewing little fireballs or something like out of my hands, but they're like little puffs of smoke rather than real fireballs.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make my way up to like really refining, I guess, my strengths.
So
shoring up my weaknesses a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think my biggest strength is, so I think there's 2 or 3 things that I feel like I do relatively well. One is that I'm just genuinely really excited and really get hype about the game. I think this is one of the things that, again, like I still kind of have to refine a little bit because I think sometimes people think that it's like it's overhype or something, but I'm like genuinely actually just that excited about things. Like you give me like at Valencia, I think some people were like, yeah, I think feardragon is a little overhyped and stuff. Oh, like casting Snoot versus Scarlet. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like Snoot and Scarlet. These are like my 2 dreams of Zergs. Like getting to watch them face off, like that's exceptionally like hype for me. So I think I can very naturally bring out that kind of excitement. And the other thing is that I feel like I'm very in touch with all the players. Like I talk a lot with a lot of the players, especially like the North Americans. And it actually, I feel really good about this. Like this is one thing I'm sort of proud of is like, it's to the point now where I talk enough with a lot of the players that I'll just be like roaming around like player pit or something at an event, or like, for example, Cheesadelphia. And like Masa came up to me right before the finals. Is like, hey, I got this strategy. Like I got this plan. And then he just starts telling me what his strategy is and like or is it like, on this map I'm gonna do this. Like I'm like, that's like trusted information. You're about to play the finals versus someone I'm also good friends with, like True.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still willing to tell me like these kind of like little tidbits, these little secrets of information. Be able to do that and like just also like talking with a lot of players. Like I think I've talked a little bit with Master, like Peely Peely or Jon Snow, Rays. Like I'm mostly listening to North American players, but I feel like I can kind of do like the behind the scenes, get the not dirty little secrets, but like the little tidbits of information you don't oftentimes hear, and kind of like I can bring that to the broadcast for everyone else to use on the broadcast.
Sounds very good. And Maynard
I'm also really good at
yeah.
talking for a long period of time.
Yeah. I mean, but seriously, that's a gift. I mean, many people get shy in front of a camera or when they know they have an audience. So, but obviously, these are factors that you also can train and improve. So, Maynard mentioned that he thinks of you also as the statistics guy. I hope I get it right now. But so, do you like statistics also?
I do like statistics. I'm a little bit surprised to hear him. I hear him say that I'm a statistics guy. So like that's a little bit interesting to me. But I guess I do like things like when I learn about the game and I say, okay, it's time to improve my game knowledge. It's like it's such an ambiguous thing, right? My way of doing it is like, okay, I'm gonna go through like 30 PvZ replays and I record down the times in a notebook. And now during the next cast, I'm like, okay, this is the earliest time that you can see an oracle. And that's like something that I'll use on the broadcast. Is like, oh, this oracle's 26 seconds late. Like that's a sign that blah 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 happened. Like this shows you how much damage that like pulling the workers did and all that kind of random stuff. So I like that kind of stuff. I think that it's actually something that In Control told me a really long time ago. Is that one of the best ways? I guess the way that I'm going to say this will make it sound like artificial or fake, but I don't really think of it as that. But like one of the best ways to appear more knowledgeable about the game, and I think it is just actually in some ways being more knowledgeable about the game. It's just about a particular aspect of it, is to create hard statistics and hard facts that are like kind of undeniable. If I say something like, I've looked at a bunch of games, like one of the standard times, or like the earlier timing for like an oracle to appear in is going to be at this time, or like an oracle to appear in like for PvZ versus a Dark Templar, it's like a minute long difference or 50-second difference. So when a Zerg player starts making spores 50 seconds earlier, then like even if there's a Dark Templars or something, it's like, oh, okay, the timing of this, I know statistically, like hard facts, this is the timing for an oracle, this is the timing for a Dark Templar. The Zerg was preparing for an oracle, but a Dark Templar is coming. So like you can create like these very hard cut, like not a lot of room to dispute facts. Yes. And I think that really helps. So like in that sense, I think I like statistics, but there's a great guy named Toferdal who does like all kinds of really cool facts. Like I asked him the other day, like, hey, Roddy keeps asking about or saying that like the win rate I always keep forgetting now. It's like the win rate for bottom spawn versus top spawn is like way better. Bottom spawn is so much better because you can handle this, and this. And I'm like, can someone calculate this, please?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, but just listening to you, I have to smile a bit because the one thing as a non-American, I associate with you Americans is your love for sports statistics. I mean, you are like when you watch a basketball game or baseball, even worse. It's like it's the guys talking and commentating the games are all about statistics, and I mean they have the weirdest stuff going on there. So I hear you. It's not your it's not your first choice to mention that. But it makes sense to me that you, as an American, also get excited about that a bit, yeah. And I agree with you. It can help you, obviously. It's not useless things to know some things, yeah. So in all this that we are talking now, so there are two parts of your life, and I mean your private life, your job that you're doing, and then this other big thing, commentating,
Mhm.
producing content. And the one thing that I'm very curious about, if what keeps you going to do StarCraft stuff? What is there a hidden motivation that I didn't pick up, or is it just pure enjoyment? You just like to do it.
I don't think that almost anyone that's involved in StarCraft doesn't like at this point. Anyone involved in StarCraft pretty much now is they're doing it because they really love it at some level. Sometimes it may not seem that way for certain people, but they genuinely there's something about the game that really does keep them together. Zombie Grub always actually likes to. She always like has this theory about like how different people are involved in StarCraft for like there's a few like 3 or 4 different reasons. Like some people really love the game, some people really love the community, some people really love the players. It's like there's like a few different reasons that most people can kind of get lumped into categories for. For me, um, I think that the thing that I really keeps me in the scene changes over time a bit. Right now, I would say it's I think I really love the game and also the players right now. Those are the two big things for me. But yeah, there's not really much of a hidden motivation. Like I'm losing like thousands of dollars to esports every year. Like this is not a money making proposition for me. But I think that I just enjoy, I guess, being a part of the scene, and I really appreciate the kind of hardships that the players go through. Like it's hard to be a player. It's really hard. I I have so much respect for them, and like there's so many things hidden behind the scenes I think that they have to go through to get to where they are. Similar to athletes, like there's so many mental hurdles that they have to climb over. It's really it's impressive and it's kind of inspirational, especially like kids that are so young and don't have like specifically like the foreigners and stuff, like they don't have any like major coaches or anything telling them what to do or like how to get through all these problems that maybe have been solved before. Like they're figuring this stuff out on their own. They're learning how to train on their own and get better and deal with loss and hardship and frustration, and like there's so many things. I just have a lot of respect for it. And I think I don't know, to me like that's like what I really enjoy. I really enjoy like watching like the whole like mankind overcomes stories. Like I really just like watching, you know, when for example Massa was like really not feeling good right before the Valencia qualifiers and everything. He was like feeling horrible. Then he does really well in like one weekly tournament, and then he wins like a show match versus Neve, and then he just trashes through Valencia's qualifier. And it's like I like watching those kind of stories where people just overcome. Or like Neve, I think is a really another good example of he is like this, you know, this Terran player, but he switches races and like he just works so hard. He works harder than I think almost any other player. Like at least at the time, the reason why Neve got so good is not because he's just naturally gifted. It's not because, you know, his parents bought him like some crazy like car, you know, like it's actually just his own hard work and dedication. He would get up in the morning at 8 in the morning, play on the European ladder for 4 or 5 hours, go eat lunch, play on North America for 4 or 5 hours, go eat dinner, and then he'd play on Korea for 3-4 hours, and then go to bed. And nobody had to tell him to do that. He just wanted to do that. It's just hard work and dedication and like actual love for the game. Like that's so inspirational to me. I think that those kinds of things, like those kind of stories, are what keep me going.
Thank you so much for that. And I can feel your motivation and passion rising up just talking like that. No, that's happy, man. That makes me happy. And I keep telling the people I'm interviewing is like even people that are more dry or intellectual, like let's say for example Arthur Nurture, they all have this in them, especially the players, but also guys like you, the commentators. And I think that's one of the things that for me personally, as a fan, are so important and that I admire. So I like Zombie Grub's theory. I think there's some to that. We will take a short technical break and then we are back in a second.